Hello, how's everybody doing? My name is Armando Flores. I would like to give a little information on Army recruiting. It's my job in the Army to give information about Army opportunities. Not all the time that I talk about information about Army recruiting. I've been in Army recruiting for about 5 years. I've been overall in the Army for almost 19 years now. One of the biggest things about Army recruiting is getting the word out and making sure that individuals know about the Army opportunities, and they know the difference between some of the perceptions that they might have. A perception is defined as an active process of selecting, organizing, and interpreting people, objects, events, situations, and activities. Some of those perceptions that people have about being in the Army, when I walk into a building, sometimes people come up to me, shake my hand, they tell me thank you for my service. Sometimes they give me a hug and they say, please be careful out there. Oh, you poor thing, how are you doing? I mean, there's just a lot of different things, but for the most part, it's very positive. But the perceptions they have is that I've been to all kinds of wars and I've seen all kinds of crazy things, and that I'm a hero, which is not entirely the case. I have been in the Army for a while, for 19 years. I have been to Iraq and Afghanistan, but I'm not an infantryman. I was in logistics, so I actually joined the Army almost 20 years ago as a truck driver, just to pay for my college, and here I am still trying to make it happen. So perception is a big thing. The biggest thing is what people think about the Army, and for the most part what people think about the Army is thank you for your service. They always have something good to say when they think about the Army, and that's honor, integrity, courage, good values, good people. They look up to those people. But the perception changes when you say, what do you think about when you want to serve in the Army? And the perceptions immediately change to, I'm going to die, I fear for my life, I'm going to go crazy, I'm going to get sent off and lose my arm or a leg, or I'm going to be in the infantry. And that's not entirely the case. The way that I explain the Army is I break it down as far as letting them know that there are a lot of behind-the-scenes jobs. There are a lot of what we call support jobs. In fact, there's over 157 different jobs in the Army. It's actually 157, over 150 jobs in the Army. And the majority of those jobs are behind-the-scenes jobs. The way I explain it is I explain it like the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, when they think about the Dallas Cowboys, they think about Dak Prescott or one of the elite players on the field. I mentioned the Dallas Cowboys because I am stationed in Texas, here in the Rio Grande Valley, which is very southern Texas. But everybody here is a Cowboy fan. We're in the NFL, the National Football League. So the way that I describe the Army is by kind of describing a professional sports team. Most people, when they think about a sports team, they think about those elite players, the best players. They don't mention the second string guy. They mention the best player on the field because that's who they know, and that's who they think about when they think about that team. But if you take a step back from that organization, there's so many more people that work for that organization that never ever get out there on the field, and they're equally as important. And the reason why we have all those different jobs, or that organization has all those different jobs, is so that those players, they don't have to do anything else but focus on practicing to be the absolute best that they can be and win championships. I tell them to time out and apply that same concept to the United States Army. When they think about the Army, they think about, Ranger Danger and Rambo, and Call of Duty, and all these other different things that they see on TV or video games that they play. But to be honest, the majority of the jobs in the Army are those behind-the-scenes jobs. And the reason why we have all these behind-the-scenes jobs is to support those men and women who do choose to do the infantry, who do choose to do those dangerous jobs, and what we call frontline jobs. Combat arms is what it's actually called. So there's combat arms and there's support. And the reason why we have all these behind-the-scenes jobs or these support jobs is so that our combat arms, they don't have to do anything else except for train to be the absolute best fighting force that the world has ever known. And the reason why they can do that is because somebody's got a job to take care of all of their other needs. Going back to perception, though, in the article from the Christian Science Monitor, in 2008, it stated that while the military continues to rate highly in public opinion consistently above other national institutes, far fewer Americans are actually interested in joining or seeing their son and daughter do so. That is a challenge. Like I said, the perception about the Army is really good. The perception changes though when when they see somebody like me, a recruiter. Even perceptions of recruiters are a little bit different. If somebody wants to come talk to me, there's already somebody, not necessarily always, but there's usually someone who says, hey, don't sign anything. Where are you going? What is she going to do? What are you going to do with her? We're just giving information. In fact, another one of those perceptions to combat everybody's a hero is in the Boston Globe. They wrote an article about, not everybody who serves in the Army is a hero. Who is a hero? In today's America, it is someone who chooses military career, puts on a uniform, and prepares for war. Placing soldiers and veterans on this kind of pedestal is relatively a new phenomenon. He goes on and he talks about how, not everybody who serves in the military is a hero. And that's a choice that they made. And I agree with that. But I do have to talk about those opportunities that they do have. I do have to talk about those opportunities that are dangerous. And if that's something that they want to do, there's always somebody who wants to do that job. And everywhere I've been, they don't need convincing though. I just need to let them know whether or not they're qualified. The regulation, or the information that tells us whether they're qualified or not, is an Army regulation. That Army regulation is called Army Regulation 601-210, which is the Army and Army Reserves procurement enlistment rules. And in that document, it tells us that anybody who wants to join the Army has to be between the ages of 17 and 34 years old. They have to enlist in the Army Reserves before their 35th birthday, and they have to ship out if they're going to be active duty before they turn 35. They have to be an American citizen or a legal resident. They have to not have committed certain crimes. That changes kind of depending on, I guess what's going on as far as what do they allow. Before they didn't allow, if they even had a possession charge, a possession of marijuana was illegal. And that they had a charge, even if it was a little stint of a marijuana, even a seed, they were permanently disqualified from joining the Army. That has changed. Now they're allowed. It is a waiver, but it's changed. There's certain medical conditions that prevent someone from joining the Army. However, Army recruiters or military recruiters, we're not doctors, so all we do is we annotate those on some forms, we submit them. There are obviously some medical conditions that will prevent them from joining the Army. I don't need a doctor to tell me that, hey, this guy has cancer. I'm sorry, young man, you can't join the Army, or he's a special needs individual. I'm sorry, you can't join the Army. The biggest challenge, though, is that they do have to meet a height and weight requirement. The height and weight requirement is certainly a challenge, and also the test. Passing the test is the Armed Service ASVAB test, the Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery. That is like an abilities test. The best way that I can explain that test to young men and women is it's a career exploration program, but for the Army, it tells us whether or not an individual is capable of learning this amount of material in this certain specific amount of time. And it's a cost-effective way of saying, yes, this individual can learn all the things that there needs to be to learn something about the medical field. And if that job is available and they're actually qualified for that job, they can choose that job in my office before they ever go somewhere to do a physical. The way that they do it is if they qualify for certain security clearances, if they qualify for certain jobs based on their ASVAB test, and that job is available in the Army, then I can give them that job right in the recruiting station. It doesn't have to be, well, you're not going to know what you're going to do. The influencers is a big challenge. In fact, in recruiting, the Los Angeles Times in 2015 stated that southern states consistently provide the biggest portion of recruits. California has the highest number of enlistments, or at least they did in 2013, but the state supplies a relatively low percentage of its 18 to 24-year-olds, which is the biggest group that the Army has. The highest rate contributors were Georgia, Florida, Idaho, Virginia, and South Carolina. those are it's better to be a recruiter in the southern states. When you're in the northern states, the culture is different. The ideals down in the southern states are that, you know, it's an honor, it's a privilege it's highly looked upon if you join the Army. In some of the other states, some of the more liberal states, or in the northern part of the nation, that it's more kind of a last option. That's one of another perceptions that people have about the Army, is that it is a last option. There's definitely a resistance or a response or a cultural diversity in the northern part of the states as opposed to some of the southern states. U.S. News and World Report, this is another thing that we do have to mention, or at least combat. As far as the good definitely outweighs the bad. But U.S. News and World Report in 2010 had reported that the suicide rate for veterans is estimated at 2 to 4 times the national average. 1/5 of the country's homeless population has also served in uniform. So when people bring that up, we have to combat that and let them know that, hey, you know, joining the Army is a privilege. And yes, there are some things that happen that is unfortunate. But the Army 20 years ago is not the Army today. The Army in the 70s, you know, the veterans, I went to a homeless shelter in Los Angeles, and all these veterans served in like the Vietnam War. None of them were my age, you know, and they're definitely not 18, 19 years old. I'm not saying that there's not in the United States. I'm just saying that the Army is different now. I would not have joined the Army 30 years ago, 40 years ago, just based on you know, my center of influences and the way that people were treated. But it is a little bit different now, and there's a lot of good that comes out of being in the Army. Some of the other information about the Army is that it's a 3-year commitment. We even have 2-year options. After those options, it does pay for your school. That is one of the misconceptions about the Army, is that if they join the Army, they're not going to go to college. Well, I'm still in the Army, and here I am still doing a class. There's a lot of opportunity in the Army. If I had the opportunity to do it again, I would do it again. Like I mentioned in my video before, I have 4 children. I have a daughter now who's going to be 17 this year, and she's mentioned military service. And I would not be opposed to her serving in the military. My wife, Brenda, she's in the Army. Or she was in the Army. She's a military veteran. So we're a veteran family. And it's a good opportunity. If you know anybody who's interested in those opportunities, tell them to at least get the information. Because getting the information is half the battle. Knowing is half the battle. And at least find out the information. That's all they're agreeing to do, is find out the information. And that really is ultimately my job, is to get them to agree to the information. And based on the information and weighing the pros with the cons, they make an informed decision. And that's really all we're asking people to do, is to make an informed decision, and to not make a decision and walk away, never knowing what they're walking away from based on perceptions or based on, you know, the cultural views of what they think it's going to happen to them if they join the Army. Thank you for your time, and have a good day.